Well, it's hard to believe that we are in week 10. We've got 5 more weeks left, and I'm 99% confident that we'll have class every Monday for the next 5 weeks. Remembering the last week, we'll be doing our project presentation. So the first 2 slides that we're going to go over are the same slides that we had in the lecture from last week for the initiating. Today, we're going to be looking at the planning phase. So just to reiterate our analogy of the stool, the top of the stool is representing our goals that we want to achieve for this great project. And remember, a great project is where we want to be all of the time. The next overall component of the stool represents assessment, how we decide if the project was successful. So the first leg of the stool represents the learning gains, and this includes any standards you are obligated to address, as well as any other learning objectives you have identified for your project. The second leg of the stool represents end products. This includes not only the final product, such as your presentation, a digital production, a website, a Facebook page, but also all the products that will be created as you go along the way, such as prototypes, drafts, prepared work, designs, drawings, and flowcharts. Moving on to the third leg, which represents project processes. Although some of you may learn better on the job, it's important to have those explicit instructions. Those will benefit you the most, knowing specifically what your goals are, your assessments. This will help develop your project management skills. As we look at project management, we want to apply the skills we've learned in the chapters through our textbook. Now that we're almost done, we have 1 chapter left, chapter 12, which is project communication and documentation. Remember our chapters. Chapter 1 was project management concepts. Chapter 2, identifying and selecting projects. 4, defining scope and quality. 5, developing the schedule. 6, resource utilization. 7, determining cost and budgets. 8, managing risk, which was very appropriate for our presentation we had with our guest speaker this week. 11, the project team. So next week we'll be doing some activities to create more of a dynamic team. So look forward to those. Every project proceeds through a cycle. And these are our 4 stages: defining, planning, doing, and reviewing. Initiating is the first step of every project. Getting projects underway can be very simple or very complex, depending on many factors, such as who is involved, what is the end product, what will the end users expect, and what other important elements should we consider. Defining a project is the opportunity to establish those components and boundaries so that the size and the shape of the project, as well as its outcomes, are well understood and agreed upon in the group before beginning the work. Planning is an important second phase because of the amount of time and energy that we're dedicating to the planning, which will correlate directly to how well the project stays on schedule and on budget and how well it meets its goals. Executing, the core of the project, is the end, the doing itself, the creation or the implementation of the planning. The doing stage, this is the third part of the project cycle. Closing, the last phase of every project, is the closing. This is the opportunity to focus on the quality of the project deliverables and the learning outcomes and the effectiveness of our team. It is also time to document lessons learned and archive information. I want to emphasize the importance of careful planning to ensure that the final project is of good quality and that time and resources are not wasted. You started the planning section of the student project plan. You may discover you need to revise the defining section. This does not mean that defining was done incorrectly, just that ongoing and iterative planning is a key aspect of good project management and is sometimes referred to as the rolling wave planning. For example, after developing a schedule and learning that there is not enough time to do what you've described in the initiating phase, you may decide to do the following: revise the goals, revise the deliverables to meet the goals in a different manner, enlist additional people to allow the work to be done more quickly, or find another way to adjust the project plan. I also want to emphasize that although the planning portion of the student project plan is explained in a linear fashion, in reality, each set of decisions made will lead to reconsideration of all related elements. In the initiating phase, you are to think about the project as a whole. In the planning phase, you will focus on the individual deliverables and how it will be completed. Each project needs a way to determine if each part or deliverable was successful. These are the measures. Success measures should be identified for each deliverable, not just checking off a task list. That's not really good enough. Success measures speaks to the quality of the work and may be qualitative or quantitative. If you use a quality or risk manager, he or she can help ensure that the success measures are aligned with the project goals and clearly established as a way to track if the deliverables have been met. These success measures should be revisited throughout the project to ensure that the project is on time and on track to meet your goals. Remember, qualitative, we're looking here at reasons, opinions. Quantitative is more of the numerical data that we measure. A project schedule is critical to any project. It helps you stay on track, holds you accountable, and ensures that everyone knows when deadlines occur. If you are using a time manager, he or she can lead the development of the project schedule. The project manager should have the final approval on the schedule. Before developing the schedule, brainstorm the actual work you will be doing that will go into the schedule, and do some pre-planning using possibly index cards, sticky notes, and online tools. A schedule may be developed as a chart, a spreadsheet, a more detailed Gantt chart. There are also free scheduling software available online. So I will be including some flow charts, some Gantt charts as a requirement for the project. And we'll go over that next week. Schedule. These are the steps that should be included in your schedule. The first step in creating a schedule is establishing milestones for each deliverable. Milestones are critical points in the project's timeline to help you monitor if your project is on schedule. Completing a deliverable will always be a milestone, but there will often be other critical points leading to the deliverable that should also be named as a milestone. Milestones are not written as to-do items. Instead, they are statements of what will have been accomplished. The number of milestones will depend on the duration and complexity of your project. Milestones are the first step in the final deadline and any dependent deliverable deadlines. Milestones are the key for monitoring a project's success because they mark all significant points in the project's life. Completing a deliverable will always be a milestone, but there will often be critical points leading to the deliverable that should be named as milestones. Activities are things you need to accomplish in order to meet your milestones, leading to completing the deliverables. Defining activities is important because it's establishing the major work for each deliverable. Consider what the big pieces of the work are required to meet each milestone. The number of activities that make up each milestone is based on the size of each deliverable and the complexity and duration of the project. Each milestone usually has multiple activities. Activities are written as action statements and usually begin with a verb. This keeps the activity focused on one set of tasks. Once you have identified the activities, you can then brainstorm the tasks or detailed steps that would be needed to fulfill the activity. Tasks are the to-do list for each activity. They can be small or large. An item as large if you might want to think about, the items that you would pick up on your shopping list, which would maybe mean visiting several stores, planning to make a purchase. Again, all purchases complete and on hand could be a milestone. As milestones, activities and tasks are refined in your project planning, the next step is creating a schedule to determine the sequential order. To determine sequence, you first assess which activities and tasks are dependent on which are independent. So refer to our table of dependencies that we developed. We developed our workflow. We determined early start, late start. Again, we're going to be establishing that sequence. One activity or task must be completed before the next can begin, which is dependent. Independent, the activity or task can be completed at any time and is not related to some other thing being completed. Sequencing is one of the most challenging parts of scheduling, but it is critical. It will affect when the milestones fall based on how the dependencies affect the workflow, and also how effectively activities and tasks can be accomplished by working on independent items simultaneously.